All right, man. Cheers.
Cheers.
How does that taste?
I missed this.
Yeah?
I missed this.
I
a
know,
lot.
right? We were talking online and it's not the same.
It really isn't. I mean, don't get me wrong. It's like, it's still fun having the conversations and everything, but sitting down and drinking is like, it's so good.
And also, like, when I was in the States, you can't get good sake. So that's the thing that I miss the most.
I can't even imagine what sake is like in the U.S.
Dude, so one thing that was interesting for me is just, trying to get sake in the States. First of all, most local liquor stores will only have one. Yeah. It's that Gekkeikan, whatever.
Sure.
But if you go to like I had to go to a big liquor store outlet, and there they had 8 kinds.
Oh.
Only 8.
What a great selection.
Yeah, they were all like made in Portland.
In Portland?
Yeah, they were all, none was, though Gekkeikan was imported, but all the other stuff was made in.
Interesting.
Yeah.
It's funny you brought that up because I have heard that recently sake is starting to like catch on in the US.
Yeah, right.
In the same way that craft beer is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So now more people are getting into it, but in the States, a lot of people are they're interested in brewing their own sake. Yeah. It's like when I looked at YouTube for sake, when I researched YouTube for sake for my sake channel, most of the videos were about how to brew your own sake. Yeah. But yeah, so today I thought we'd just like catch up and, you have some amazing experiences. Like just hearing about you talking about going to a gay bar and like being in Osaka and like, you tell me all these great stories. So today I thought it would be great to talk about some interesting experiences we've had.
Sure.
In Japan.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I've got a lot of stories just throughout all my life. Because it's kind of weird. I kind of have like 2 different experiences. I have like my experience as high school Austin. Yeah. In Japan. Which a lot of those experiences are kind of like to me not only experiencing Japan for the first time, but kind of like just that was like some of my first experiences just being like a man. Yeah. And kind of having like a little bit more independence and stuff. So those are pretty fond memories. And then there's adult Austin coming to Japan. And I wouldn't say there's like a lot of first time experiences there, but usually those are a little bit more whimsical because I'm usually drunk in those ones.
so what's an area of Japan or Tokyo where you've had some of your most memorable experiences?
Ooh,
for me, it's Shibuya.
Shibuya? I mean, yeah, I've had a lot of fun experiences in Shibuya. I think I mean, I guess this is going to sound kind of weird, but I think some of my most memorable experiences have been like not a specific one, but in high school.
Okay.
Yeah. So in of course in the high school that I work at, and then also when I was a kid, in the high school that I was staying in, I had a lot of memorable experiences. So yeah, it's kind of weird for me to say, but just to put into perspective, like back when I was a high school student, so this was like, what am I, 30? I'm 31 now. Okay. And so it was 14. What is that? 15 years ago? No. 17 years ago. I'm bad at math. Okay. So back then, vending machines, at least in like Kansai area, were a little bit more free. Yeah. In the sense that you could get alcohol from them. And so I remember there was this set of vending machines right behind a conveni, like right outside my school. And the school that I was going to when I was doing an exchange program was it was not an academic school. It was like a public school, and this is in Kansai area. It was a sports school. Okay. Right. So they had their baseball team, and like that was good. Yeah. And then everyone else was kind of just there. Yeah. Right. So I wasn't playing baseball, but I joined the rugby team while I was staying here. So I made friends with like all the rugby players. So they're kind of like the tough guys in the class, right? And
dude,
so
it's rugby.
Yeah. And so I remember I'd be hanging out with them, and during lunchtime, everyone would just be like, "Hey, let's go buy some beers from the conveni." So like every single day during lunch in the middle of the day, we'd just be like chugging beers and then go back to class at like 16 years old.
Yeah, so. It's funny you say that because I have seen back when before I actually lived here, I saw people say you can get everything from vending machines.
Oh, you could?
And yeah, I think it's changed a lot now.
Oh, it has.
Because when I walk down the street, sometimes I see a vending machine where you can buy beer, but they're all out of commission.
Yes,
they're all old.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think at the time, there was kind of like an honor system. They're like, hey, you can buy alcohol out of this vending machine, but don't do it if you're under 20.
Yeah,
and I think most kids followed that rule. That would not work in America.
Yeah, right.
Those machines would be empty after like the first day. But I think people started to like catch on, and so kids just started buying beer, and then they switched it. I've seen a couple vending machines these days that still have alcohol, but they have like they require you to use your card.
Yeah, right.
In order
like
to do
ID.
it. Yeah. So
what's like a major memory you have being at a high school in Japan? That you're going to take with you for the rest of your life?
So I mean the one I listed for sure, but another one was my uniform.
Your uniform?
My school uniform.
Okay.
All right. So like I said, I went to a public school.
Yeah.
And you know Japanese school uniforms, right?
Yeah,
so you get the high school uniform. I was at a public school, so you got like guys have like the black pants and the white shirt. That was our summer clothes. Me being an American, I hated that. I did not like school uniforms. And quick sidetrack before I move on with the story. So my school in America was a private school.
Okay.
And we didn't have an official uniform, but we had business clothing that you were supposed to wear. That was our
like you're supposed to be business casual or something?
Business casual. Okay. So no jeans. We had to have like slacks, collared shirts. You can't wear t-shirts or hoodies or anything. So you're supposed to look professional. And I also hated that. And I wore jeans almost every day, and I got in a huge amount of trouble.
Okay.
I was in like detention almost every single
Rebel.
day. Yeah. But yeah. So in Japan, I've got to wear a uniform, and I was like, this is dumb. I don't want to wear a stupid uniform.
Yeah.
And now I fondly look back on uniforms like, oh man, they're kind of cool. But anyways, so I knew that I couldn't wear different clothing.
Yeah.
Like that was just straight up. If I did that I would get in trouble with the teachers. But I knew because I was American, there was a little bit of leniency on what I could get away with.
Yeah.
So I started putting like accessories on my uniform. So like I started off like I was just testing the waters this first time. So I was like, okay, what if I just wore like a crazy belt? So I had this like black and white checkered belt that I put on, and I thought it was so cool. Like looking back on it now, it's like, God, you're so lame. But I put this black and white checkered belt on my uniform, and I went to school that day, and like a couple of my friends in class were like, "Whoa, your belt's so cool!" And then the teachers didn't see it because I was in the back of the class and I never stood up. So I was like, okay, all right, let's push a little further now.
Okay.
So I started wearing a belt buckle, and this belt buckle, the times were so much different.
Yeah.
Like 17 years ago, because so I had a belt buckle that was the Starbucks symbol.
Okay.
And instead of like Starbucks there, it just said "fuck you." And that's what I wore to school every day.
Well, I mean, I'm sure like some of the teachers don't know what that means. So it's like, wow.
So yeah, I had my black and white checkered belt. I had my giant "fuck you" belt buckle on it, and then so I noticed I got away with that, and I'm like, okay, well, let's see how far this goes now. And so I remember I put on a green tie. And no one at my school wore ties. Yeah. Like winter uniform, sure, but like it's summer. No one's wearing ties. But I wanted to be special, so I put on a green tie with like shamrocks and stuff on it.
Okay.
And so I wore that, and finally, like my PE teacher like kind of grabbed me by the arm and like pulled me over. It's like, "Why are you wearing a tie?"
Yeah.
It's like, I wanted to. It's like, oh, you should take that off. Like, fine.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like they're kind of polite about it.
Yeah.
At first, they're not like, "Hey, quit that." Like, of course, if you disobey further, they'll be like that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, cheers.
Yeah. So like, it's funny that you said that because I kind of noticed the same thing when I came here and I was looking for apartments. I noticed this in kind of the business world too, because back in the States, everything's very casual now. You know, even when my dad used to work in investment banking, and at that time people were wearing super expensive shirts and stuff, but now it's very casual now. But in Japan, it's still very like rigid. You have to wear a white shirt, black suit, right?
Yeah.
Black jacket. And so I noticed the people at the real estate agency, they all had a white shirt on, but then like the stitching around the buttonholes was a different color, or like there was a little like ridge on the collar that was a different color, like a bright red or something. And I'm like, wow, that's really weird. Like, why do they have these strange accents that's built into the clothes? And I realized that's how they can show their individuality while staying within the lines.
Exactly. I mean, that's put perfectly. Yeah. And I think that's a pretty common misconception when somebody comes here. They say like, oh, Japanese people all look the same. You know, businessmen look the same, students look the same. And I think initially, yes. Yeah. But if you start looking closely, you'll see these like subtle little details of people just trying to express themselves here. Yeah, I completely agree, man.
Yeah, dude, it's funny, you know, so this is something I always bring up, but I remember when my sister came and visited me in January of 2014. Yeah. When I was a student here. So just to tell you, my sister is amazing. She's currently right now in Lebanon, even though there's like war conflict going on there. Oh. She spent some time in Guatemala. She went to Turkey. She works in like international law and like helping people. She's really like a superhero. She's awesome.
That's awesome.
But she's been in some amazing, crazy places. Like she lived in Cape Town, which is one of the most dangerous cities in the world. She, with her boyfriend, they went up to Zimbabwe and they got stopped by people at gunpoint at like a customs area. And she's like this blonde-haired, like white girl. So, but like she's been all over the world by herself. It's fine. When she came to Tokyo and I was walking with her, she started having panic attacks.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Let me explain why. Okay. So, because for her, those countries were completely different. Like you look on the outside, you're in some place completely different culture, completely different background. Yeah. But Japan's kind of weird because when you look at Japan on the outside, I mean, like the buildings and stuff are quite different because of earthquakes and stuff, but it's a very developed, very almost, you want to say like westernized place, right? Yeah. So it's kind of like, oh, everyone's adopted like Western cultures. Everyone kind of blends into like Western society now, whatever. But when you look deeper, you see everything is still so Japanese. Like they've taken those Western concepts and they've made them. So like when you kind of squint your eyes and you don't pay attention, it's like, oh, this is very Western. It's really not that different. But when you look closely, everything is incredibly different. And I think it was that disorienting feeling my sister had. Because she like didn't know if she was supposed to be in like Western American European mode or if she was supposed to be in like non-European mode, and she just couldn't gauge that.
That's really interesting. Yeah. Like it was so funny because like I was gonna leave her at a cafe because I had a meeting, and she's like, "Wait, what am I supposed to do?" I'm like, "Alex, there's a menu. It has English on it." And this is someone who was guiding me through Africa. Okay. That's so crazy. Yeah. That's so crazy.
Yeah. But it really is that disorienting thing where it's like on the outside, everything looks the same, or you expect it to be one way, but when you look closer, it's really different.
Yeah. Yeah. I have like a similar experience to that, but not so much a panic attack with like, you know, like the art style and stuff with buildings and everything. But for me, it was a train station. I think nowadays people are a little bit spoiled with GPS. Yeah. Because, I mean, you just pull out your smartphone and just kind of, okay, well, here's where I want to go. What train lines do I want to take? And it tells you, like, the platforms and everything.
Back in 2013, Google Maps didn't really work here.
Dude, yeah. So, let's see. I was a high school student coming here in 2005, 2006. Yeah. And so, smartphones, like the iPhone, the iPhone 1, like, just came out. Yeah. And I remember... little off topic. I like going off topic. Yeah. I remember my classmate in school. This is back in the U.S. He got an iPhone because his parents were a little wealthy and everything, and he was all excited. He got an iPhone for his birthday, which was like, I think it was like a $700 phone at the time. Yeah. But he was like, "Oh yeah, look at this iPhone," and this was back before data usage was unlimited. So you had to pay for all the data that you used. So he was like downloading games. He was listening to music on his iPhone all day and everything. First month he had it, racked up a $600 phone bill.
$600
His
phone bill.
parents were furious. He was so like, I got my phone taken away. It's like, what? Why? What did you do? He's like, I racked up a $600 phone bill and my dad took it away. Like,
dude.
Oh my God.
No, but it's funny that you mentioned that because that's something that I was thinking of when you were telling your story too. Because the first time I came to Japan was in 2007.
Yeah.
That was literally the year the iPhone came out, right?
Yeah.
And I remember getting on the train, and I would see everyone reading books. Or they would be texting on their like garake on their like flip phones, right?
Yeah.
And then I remember then so that was 2007. God. I come back in 2013, so it's like 6 years later, right?
Yeah.
And then I look, and it's still a very quiet train.
Yeah.
There are no books.
Yeah.
Everyone is out on their phone. There's no tapping. It's just looking at their phones. I'm like, wow, this is so weird. Everyone's just like staring at their phone, which it's the same as like what was in the States, but it was like I had this image of how Japan was, and then in 7 years, that was one thing that was different.
Yeah.
Huge cultural shift.
Yeah. I remember 16-year-old Smooth Austin when I first came here. Visiting Tokyo. I mean, of course, there's a lot of pretty girls here. And I remember I loved getting on the train because we're going to all these different train stops. And while I was on the train, usually there's a lot of pretty girls that go on the train because there's just a lot of people. Yeah. And I remember at the time, like, I would go up and talk to them while on the train.
Really?
So, for me, like, that felt really normal because it's like, as an American, you just go up and talk to somebody, right?
Yeah, right.
And so I remember I went up to this one girl, and she was sitting down, just kind of like napping.
Yeah.
And I got another story to tell after this, which is like equally creepy, but it's kind of funny at the same time. So I started talking to her, and like I was trying to talk to her in like broken Japanese because like I probably had taken like 2 years of Japanese at high school, so I knew enough to form like words. Yeah. I didn't know how to say sentences, but like I could say words. Yeah. And she looked at me like really confused, like, "Are you lost? Like, what? Do you need help?
Yeah, why are you talking to
you
me?"
know what I mean? Yeah. So yeah, that was my first encounter, like trying to speak to a girl here. It was really, really unsuccesssul. Yeah. And then another time I was doing a homestay up in Aomori, and we.
Oh, you went to you used to. How long were you in Aomori for?
2 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah, not a super long time, but yeah, it was an okay experience.
Okay, that's the when I went to Aomori, that's what kicked off my love for sake.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Nice.
Sorry, okay.
It was really boring for a high schooler. I'll just be honest with you. There's nothing there. It's just farmland. Yeah. Now I think I would like it a lot because it's got like it's famous for apples and everything, and it's a good place to visit. But yeah, as a high schooler, it sucked.
Yeah, there's nothing to do.
Yeah, so I used to have to commute to school by bus because there wasn't any trains.
Yeah,
around. It was like,
what school did you go to?
It was a private aviation.
Yamada? Oh no.
Yeah, it was an aviation school.
Okay.
Because I know they tried to do like a sister school program with my school back in America. Because I went to a pilot school in America, and this was like kind of like the equivalent of in Japan.
Okay.
So I started going there, and I was commuting by bus, and. You know how like in Japan it's pretty common if a person like dozes off, they kind of just and just kind of like fall asleep on somebody, right? And I remember there was this older girl that sat next to me, and she probably was like college age, right? And I at the time I think I was like 16 or 17, and she fell asleep and she like leaned on my shoulder, and I'm sitting here like.
You're like, what do you do?
This girl's like into me. Wow, she's leaning on me. So that's what I was thinking, right?
Okay.
As an American, because you would never see that in America.
Yeah.
So that like just body contact's like a really intimate thing in American culture, right? So like she leans on me, and I'm just like, oh my God. And me being a dumb teenager too, I'm just like, whoa, this girl's so into me. So like, I like kind of nudged her, like tapped her on the shoulder. And like she woke up and like looked at me like really confused, like what are you doing? And like I was saying in like broken Japanese and English, like, "Oh, it's okay, you can sleep on my shoulder," and like it sounded really good in my head at the time. It sounded really good in my head at the time. I was like, "Oh man, I'm just being really smooth, just giving her permission. It's okay to sleep on my shoulder." And then like later on, so she gets off, and I'm like walking to school as I get off the bus, and I'm like, "Wow, that was really creepy, actually."
Dude, Austin,
it's okay if you sleep on my shoulder.
So the first time that happened to me, it was a dude, so I didn't get any of that miscommunication. I was on the train, and I just remember there was this business dude who just went like, I was like, what are you, if I had this like real like anxiety all of a sudden. I had to stop I had to go in a couple stops, and I was like, okay, what's the protocol? If I leave, then he's gonna wake up, or he's gonna fall down and hit someone else. What do I do?
You gotta take care of this man now.
Like I know, but people. So I'd always seen pictures of like people leaning their heads on other people's shoulders and sleeping. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's not gonna happen to me, but it did. Yeah. And then no one talks about what you do afterwards.
Yeah.
What do I do? So I just kind of I started like wiggle a little bit, like this, trying to wake him up, and then he just woke up, and I was like, great, okay, now I can leave.
Escape. Yeah. Oh my god, that's so weird.
Dude, I was like, what do you do in that situation?
Yeah, it's a really awkward situation for sure.
Yeah, that would never happen.
No,
ever.
Yeah. People really are big about personal space in the States, which it's kind of funny because they're also really big about personal space here.
Yeah, people don't hug here.
Yeah. And then you get on the train and everyone's like, yeah, it's okay if you're like shoved into my rib cage. Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird. It's like, it's funny because in everyday life, you have a lot of distance, and like you have to, especially even when you're talking with someone, you keep distance, right? But then when you get on the train, it's like almost expected that you're going to be like on top of each other pretty much. But yeah, that's something that always confused me. It's like, okay, so you don't hug people, but you can fall asleep and your head lies on a stranger's shoulder.
Yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah.
I just don't understand.
Oh man, I just got some flashbacks of living in my previous apartment over in Kamata. Okay. So that's like South Tokyo. Yeah. And I used to have to communicate. Jesus, I've drank too much sake already. I used to commute to work on the Keihin Toku line. Yeah, so that's like one of the main lines coming in from into South Tokyo. It like stops at like the big cities in like Kawasaki and Yokohama. So that train is packed. Yeah. They have to have like the station staff like pushing on people to close the doors at every station in the morning. And so I'd get on that, and man, I just remember like commuting to work during summer and being squished in with salarymen and feeling like the body heat and sweat.
Dude, yeah.
Oh god, that was such an unpleasant experience.
Dude, especially like the worst part is like at the end of the day in the summer, because that's after like
when everyone's
super smelly.
Yeah.
And like I remember walking into the train and like I could feel the BO in the air masking my face as I'm getting on. It's like, no, it's just like, don't open your mouth, don't breathe it in.
Yeah, it really is. It's like it's like a thickness in the air. You know what I mean?
Yeah, the air is heavier, it's thicker.
You kind of feel that. It's not quite like going into water, but it's kind of like you're like entering like, some kind of
it's like a new form of matter between liquid and gas. It's
oh
like
man.
In between that. The Tokyo subway. No, dude, but so there's nothing that kind of terrifies me more than waiting for the train, and when the train pulls up, I see like condensation dripping from the windows because it means
where it's got like
because it means I'm gonna be walking into that and I have to deal with that. And man, dude, so do you have any interesting stories about being on the like during rush hour? Because I have one that I really want to share.
Oh man,
this before.
Okay. So this again was on the Keihin Toku line.
Yeah.
So it's super crowded, and I'm commuting to work in the morning, and we arrive at Shinagawa.
Okay.
So Shinagawa is like one of the I think it's the third biggest train station in Tokyo.
Yeah.
And so this train station is packed, and I was getting off because I wanted to just swing into Starbucks on my way to work. And so I was getting off the train, and there was this pretty like large obese woman in front of me, and so at some of the train stations they have like a little bit of a gap that is between the train and the station, the platform, I mean. And for the most part, it's pretty easy to avoid.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's not a huge gap, and as long as you just remember to like step over it, you're good.
Yeah.
And so people were kind of rushing out the door. So there's kind of like a pushing thing. Everyone's trying to get off the train. And so I remember this woman like misstepped and just plunged into that. And I'm behind her and I see her fall in, and I'll admit I'm a good Samaritan. If I see somebody in trouble, I'm going to stop and help them. So I turned around and started like trying to pull this woman out of the wedge like between the train and the platform, and she is super heavy and she's stuck. So there's no way I'm getting her on my own. And I'm sitting here like pulling on her for like 15 seconds. And I remember the station attendant, he came over to me and he was just kind of like watching. And he's like, "What? Daijoubu desu ka? Are you okay?" It's like, dude, no.
Yeah, she's stuck.
Like, I'm trying to pull this woman out of the wedge. Like, what are you doing? Help me. So like, yeah, that was probably my most frustrating experience with rush hour.
Yeah. So, dude, it's funny that you mentioned that, because I remember hearing like on the train, it was like, so in Japanese, like, especially because I remember at Shibuya Station, because I used to go to Shibuya all the time. That's where my school was. I remember in Japanese, when the train was coming, after they announced the train that was coming, they'd say like, what is it? They'd say like, "Densha to homu no aida wa aite orimasu node go chūi kudasai," which means the gap between there's a gap between the train and the platform, so please be careful, right?
Yeah.
And I never really cared about that much.
Yeah.
But then I used to live on the Seibu Shinjuku line some years ago, and a lot of the Seibu Shinjuku line stations are actually kind of curved a little bit to go with that. So what that means is that the train kind of curves a little bit with it.
Yeah.
Which means depending on the door, you have like a gap that's almost like over a foot.
Yeah.
Like maybe like a foot and a half almost. And I just remember getting off being like, "Oh crap, I'm glad I missed that." And then I saw a drunk guy get in and he like tripped and he like fell down. Like, no, like the bottom part of his foot got caught, but he was moving forward. So it almost like if he went a little bit higher, it would have broken his leg maybe.
Wow.
But like he just kind of tripped and was like hitting himself. And I was thinking, man, you have to really be careful.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
Yeah.
Man, but there's so many interesting rush hour stories.
Yeah.
I have. So like I will never forget this, no matter how long I live. So I used to live on the Chuo line. I used to live in Nakano Station on the Chuo line. And the Chuo line is known for being really crowded.
Yes.
It's like one of the crowdiest. Is that even a word? Crowd. It's one of the most crowded lines.
There we go.
On the JR,
we got
on the
there
JR
in the
train
end.
system.
Yeah.
And it's also known for having a lot of like suicides. So it's always late a lot of the time.
Yeah.
So I get on at Nakano Station, and there's this little elementary school girl who really just like comes up to a little bit above my belly button, right? And I get on the train, and she gets on the next stop, and I can see. Dude, don't worry about it. I know this bottle was almost empty by the time.
It's all good.
Yeah. So I remember, she gets on the train, and she's standing in front of me, and she's just like, "Oh, gaijin-da, oh, it's a foreigner, right?" And then behind her, a wave of people come on, and they basically like push her into me.
Oh.
So I end up like curving my belly and putting my arms out like that to create like this little safe haven for her, so that people can't like push into her.
Yeah.
And they're all on the side of her. And in Japan, like elementary school students, they have they call them randereseru, like those really box rucksacks, backpacks.
Those things are expensive.
Those are super expensive. Yeah, that's another discussion.
Yeah.
And I remember like we get off at the station she's supposed to get on, right? And we get to the station and she looks up at me like kind of nodding with a smile, being like, thank you. And the doors open. I think this is Shinjuku Station, so it's a huge station. So the doors open. All the people rush out, and the people have like caught her
body her.
No, they've caught her backpack. So they literally like pull her back.
No.
Like the traction of the backpack moving with the crowd pushes her back. So I really saw just like a and then I was like, oh crap, what happened? Because I didn't see her in the crowd of people. But then I looked down out of the window, and down there. I saw her walking just fine, but I just remember she was looking at me like smiling, like, oh, thank you so much. Just like pulled out by the force.
Dude, I feel so bad for kids.
Yeah.
Because like, especially here in Tokyo, a lot of the kids are, they got to commute to school during rush hour because their school starts in the morning. And now I take the subways. My subway's awesome. It's so much better than JR. It's never crowded. I always get to sit down. But yeah, back when I was...
Is that the Asakusa line?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. But back when I was on my other train line, I'd see some of my students in the morning, and it's like junior high school girls are not very tall.
Yeah.
I mean, they're probably about here on average, right?
Yeah. And we're sitting down.
Yeah.
So they're not as tall as you mean?
Yeah.
Like
we're
you sitting down.
Yeah. So I mean, if we're talking in terms of like feet, I don't know, 4'3", 4'4", somewhere around there, right?
Yeah.
So they're not tall.
Yeah.
So for an adult guy, they're like coming up to your stomach and everything. And I remember seeing some of my students just sandwiched in between just like a mass of people. And I remember like the worst I've ever seen is it was one of my my junior high school girls. So she's probably 11 or 12.
Yeah.
And she was standing, so where the doors are at, right?
Yeah.
So she was standing at the opposite side of the door that opens, so the unused door. And so this mass of people just comes in and just mushes her against the window. So I was standing kind of like a little bit further back in the car, and I just see her like pressed against the window right there. I'm like, that sucks. Like,
yeah,
I've been there.
Yeah, man.
Rush hour sucks.
Seriously.
Don't use rush hour.
Yeah, I mean,
trains.
You should use it once when you don't need to, because then it's fun.
Yeah.
But if you need to experience that day after day after day,
it's grinding.
That'll get you.
Yeah.
Dude.
But there's another time of the train
that
I'm a huge fan of.
Yeah.
And that's the last train.
The last train.
The last train's fun. So the last train it's kind of like a famous phenomenon here in Japan. Like everybody knows about it, and it's the drunk train.
Yeah, we should be really clear though, right? So, New York City subway goes 24 hours. But
does it?
Yeah, it does. But you don't want to ride in the middle of the night.
Oh yeah, you'll die.
Or whatever. Yeah, pretty much. No, but yeah, in Tokyo, the trains run until about midnight or about 1 a.m. at the latest.
Yeah, depending on where you're at.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. So that was something that really surprised me first coming here. But anyways, so the last train before it's...
Yeah, so my most memorable experience getting on the last train, and it was a really normal night. I think I just met up my friends in Shibuya, so like that's the big party area in Japan, or in Tokyo. And so we just met up and we just got drunk at a bar.
Yeah.
Like nothing special there. And we stayed really late, so I had to catch the last train. So it's coming from Shibuya, it's like around 12.
Yeah.
And Shibuya is like the most crazy place to catch the last train.
Yeah, it is.
Literally, the train will be packed like rush hour.
Yeah.
But everybody is hammered.
Yeah, and on top of the BO smell we were talking about before, you have the alcohol burping smell too.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
But it's really, it's kind of, it can be a pretty fun experience because, like I said, everyone's hammered. So, even here in Japan, people tend to be pretty talkative and friendly when they're drunk.
Yeah.
And so I managed to sit down, which if you understand how crazy that is, that I was able to sit down in Shibuya on the Yamanote line.
Right.
But I was able to sit down. And so I'm sitting on this, and the train's just crowded with drunk people. And there was a guy and his girlfriend that ended up like standing right here. And they're obviously very, very drunk.
Yeah.
And the guy instantly looked down and got really excited because he's like, "Oh, wow, a foreigner. Cool. All right, time to practice English, I guess." And I was like, dude, it's midnight. Why are you doing this now? So he starts getting really excited and talking to me, and his girlfriend joins in.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he just pulls out gummy bears. Just randomly pulls out gummy bears and is like, "Do you want some gummy bears?" And I'm like, you offering me drugs here? Like, because that was my first thought.
Was
like,
it like a package?
It was like an open bag that he pulled. He didn't open the bag when he pulled it out of his pocket, but it was the Haribo gummy bears.
Yeah.
He pulls an open bag of Haribo gummy bears out of his pocket, and that was my first instinct of like, are you offering me drugs? Because like in America, that's probably drugs.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I'm like, all right, sure, I'll have some gummy bears. And so, like, we start eating gummy bears together,
on
and
the train,
yeah. So we go through a couple stops, and he starts getting tired, but there's nowhere to sit. So he just like sits down on like the floor of the train.
Yeah.
And his girlfriend joins him. So like we're in the middle of this crowded Yamanote train,
and
with
they
like
just sit on the floor.
and they're just sitting on the floor. Like he's right here, his girlfriend's right here, and I'm right here, and we're just sharing gummy bears, talking in the middle of the train. Yeah, it was kind of weird.
Yeah, dude. So I've never had any weird stories like that on the train. I think I'm just much less approachable than you are. Like people see my resting face is like, don't come near me. I guess that's the message it tells. But there was this one time I was just on the train going back to my house, and I remember there was a guy who got on the train, and I was standing up, and he was standing up too, just hanging. He was just like kind of dazed, closing his eyes. Then he like opens his eyes, looks in my direction, sees me. Immediately his eyes widen up.
Yes.
And he looks at me like he just found like a really hot chick or something like that. It's like he starts to move his eyebrows a little bit. Yeah. And then with his other arm, he goes like this. He raises it up. And I'm like, I have no clue what this guy is doing. Like I've never seen this guy before. And he's just like a meter away from me. He just like puts his arm up. And then when it gets to about to where his chest is, he puts out his thumb and says, "Good job."
There's no context with that, huh?
And so then I responded back to him in Japanese. He's like, "Oh, you speak Japanese? Okay. Hey, you want to go drink?" And I'm like, "No, dude, this is the last train. I gotta go." He's, "Oh, okay." But I just remember going like, "Good job."
That's
Where did that
freaking
come
hilarious.
from? You know?
Oh man.
Yeah. Dude, so there's so many good stories we can have.
Oh,
I feel like we should have like a weird train stories.
Oh God, I've got
section.
tons.
We can do that next time.
I've got tons.
Let's do that next time, 'cause I have a lot more stories on the platforms.
Oh, really? The platforms?
The platforms are where everything happens for me.
Really?
Not inside the train.
Oh, it's always inside the train for me.
Well, then we'll have a very nice balanced conversation next time, so we'll do that.
Yeah.
All right, man. So yeah, let's shut it off for today, and we'll talk next time.
Sounds good.
Awesome.